How's it going, everybody? Lampini here again today, and we are going to be going over week one of the 2025 NFL season. Well, fans, we finally made it. It is NFL season once again, and we start from week one. And I hope you guys are about as excited as I am. So we're not going to waste any time. We're going to jump right into week one with Thursday Night Football. So kicking things off with Thursday Night Football, we have the Dallas Cowboys at the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't know whose idea it is to have the Dallas Cowboys start with the season opener, but the Cowboys are not the same team that they were even 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 30 years ago. They're an incredibly irrelevant franchise, only kept irrelevant by Jerry Jones, desperate for attention, trading their best player, Micah Parsons, a week before the season. The Cowboys aren't going anywhere. You saw it in my prediction video. I had to make an addendum because while I was editing it, Jerry Jones fucked up his franchise even more. And what's crazy is I saw the Jerry Jones documentary, and they made it seem like he was some crazy person for trading Herschel Walker and firing Tom Landry. This is not the same situation by a long shot. Jerry Jones has hired a yes man who does not have a actual vocal voice in his body. He's just a puppet for Jerry Jones. They don't have any talent on the team anymore. They have CeeDee Lamb and they have Dak Prescott, and that's about it. And Dak Prescott alone is just a slightly above average quarterback. And then outside of that, they don't really have much else going on. We know Trayvon Diggs and Deron Bland are good defensive backs, but they have had standout seasons, but they haven't had consistent success. So it remains to be seen if either of those guys are going to be able to do that. The Cowboys are a god-awful, terrible team, like they always will be. I think they're going to finish with 6 wins, and it's just the same as it is. As for the Eagles, they are the defending Super Bowl champions and rightful spot in opening day. They are a fantastic team. They're a powerhouse. They're a talented roster. They got to where they are not by dumb luck, but by building an incredibly talented, strong roster that's coached by a good coach in Nick Sirianni. I don't think he's a great coach. I think he's a good coach. But when your roster is as good as it is, all you really need is a good coach. The Eagles are going to win this one, obviously. They are going to crush, and they are going to dominate. They're going to beat the Dallas Cowboys at home. They're going to finish 1-0, and I am expecting this to be a blowout, honestly. I honestly think a lot of people are going to be expecting that. It's a divisional round matchup, so it may be a bit closer than some people are expecting. But, I mean, who thinks the Cowboys are going to win this? The Cowboys are nothing but a faded legacy at this point. You know, they're still the most valuable sports team in all of sports. But the fact that they still can't win football games despite how much value they hold is an embarrassment, frankly. It is an embarrassment. So I'm going to go with the Philadelphia Eagles. They're going to win. Next up on Friday night, we have the Kansas City Chiefs at the Los Angeles Chargers. So the Chiefs are still the Chiefs, despite the suspensions to Rashee Rice, despite Travis Kelce, having a down season last year, despite Patrick Mahomes having an average season last year. They're still the Chiefs, and we need to not forget they still made the Super Bowl last year. They got blown out by the Eagles, but they still won. After they got blown out by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, we all remember what happened the next year. They made the conference championship and then went back-to-back. So this is nothing new for the Kansas City Chiefs, which I think is a good thing for them. The Chargers, they have Jim Harbaugh. They have, Justin Herbert. They have a great defense. They played very well last year. They lost in embarrassing fashion in the wild card, but I think the Chargers are a team that's on the rise. And I think they're going to play the Chiefs very hard, but I do think ultimately the Chiefs are going to win. It's going to be a very, very close game, but Mahomes is going to, pull out some devil magic, and ultimately he is going to win. I'm going with the Chiefs on this one. So next up, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Atlanta Falcons. This is the first of the Sunday games, and they're starting it off with a divisional rivalry here. These are probably the two teams that are going to fight for the NFC South this year. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have won it the past couple years, and the Falcons have not made the playoffs since 2018. This is going to be an interesting game because I don't really know if the Falcons are going to be any good with Michael Penix, if he's the answer for them. But what's good about it is if Michael Penix ends up not doing well, they always have Kirk Cousins to fall back on because he's their backup. But paying a backup that much money is just going to siphon out resources from the rest of the team. So if Michael Penix doesn't play phenomenal, then the Falcons are going to be spending a lot of money on a dead cap player in Kirk Cousins. I think Baker's career resurgence has been very interesting. Out of all the turmoil of going from the Browns to the Panthers to the Rams for a little bit, he's found his home in Tampa Bay, and I think he is going to be their starter for years to come. He's entering his age 29 season. So, when you have a gunslinging mentality like Baker Mayfield, you will probably have around 5, 6, 7, 8 even more years to play. You look at Matt Stafford entering age 37, just like Russell Wilson and Kirk Cousins. That's usually like the cutoff with a lot of guys. So Baker has a lot of career left in him to play in Tampa Bay. I think that the Buccaneers are going to win this game, though. They're going to come out strong. They had a very good showing against us in week 1 as well. They were very strong in week 1. They beat us pretty convincingly, and I think we're going to get to see the same thing here. I'm going with Tampa Bay against the Atlanta Falcons. So next up, we have the Cincinnati Bengals at the Cleveland Browns. I went over this a little bit in my AFC predictions video, but the Bengals are the most frustrating team in the NFL. They have an MVP level quarterback, and they have an Offensive Player of the Year, All-Pro level wide receiver in Jamar Chase. And they have a Pro Bowl wide receiver in T. Higgins, and they have an All-Pro defensive end in Trey Hendrickson. Outside of those 4 players, they don't have much going on for them. So the problem is their ceiling is very high because of those players, but their floor is still very low. So what's going to end up happening is the Bengals are going to be a team that many people think can beat other teams, and then they're just going to fall short. Because if you think about it, last year was the first offseason where Joe Burrow had no injuries in the preseason. He came in fully healthy. He played like he was fully healthy as well, but their team still let them down, and they finished 9-8, right? So I think it's going to be very similar this time. I think they're going to go 9-8 again. But that being said, I do think that they are going to beat the Browns. The Browns are going to be in the running for one of the worst teams in the league. Joe Flacco is going to be their starter, but I think that's a bit deceptive because Joe Flacco's thrown a lot of interceptions. So I think that Joe Burrow is going to be able to capitalize on the interceptions that Joe Flacco throws, and they're going to score points off of short fields. The Bengals are favored by 5.5 points, but I don't think it's going to be that much. I think it's actually going to be a bit of a closer game because while Joe Flacco, I think, will throw interceptions, I think the Bengals' defense is going to be bad enough that the Browns are going to stay in this game. If the Bengals lose week 1 to the Browns, that is a catastrophic failure on their part. That is a huge loss. The Bengals have had to dig themselves out of 0-2 and 0-3 holes the last couple years. They need to hit the ground running this year, and they need to win this easy layup game against the Browns if they're going to be considered being taken seriously. So I'm going to be going with the Bengals on this one. So next up, we have the Miami Dolphins at the Indianapolis Colts. This is a tale of 2 very dysfunctional franchises. On one hand, you have the Dolphins, who have a very fragile mid-quarterback in Tua Tagovailoa, and you have a disgruntled veteran named Tyreek Hill, who is a piece of crap, shall we say. Not a very good guy at all. They had a very underwhelming season. The Dolphins had a very underwhelming season last year. They kind of ran into a lot of the same problems. Tua Tagovailoa injury. Their offense didn't work as well as it did last year. Tyreek Hill maybe is going to get a bit older. I don't know if he's going to bounce back, but the Dolphins team does not seem very sustainable. And it's really sad because, it's clear that Tua is a good quarterback. It's clear that he knows how to go through his progressions. He knows how to make the throws. He knows how to read coverages. He knows all the things that make a quarterback a good quarterback. I've seen enough of him play to know that he is a good franchise quarterback in this league. But I just haven't seen enough of him to be great. And I think that's the big problem. It's like the Derek Carr effect. Not to mention all the Tyreek Hill drama makes matters even worse too. As for the Colts, they have their own problems with the curse of Andrew Luck, where they still have not been able to get a franchise quarterback sticking with them since Andrew Luck retired at the start of the 2019 season. It's been about 5-6 years. This will be their 6th week 1 starter in 7 years. Their 6th one. Some crazy, crazy stuff there. I think the only time there's been the same week 1 starter was Anthony Richardson, but he hasn't done anything either. He hasn't been an impressive starter either. He's messed stuff up and he's hurt himself and he's been very inconsistent. And their gamble of having an extremely raw physical talent that they can mold into being a quarterback has backfired. And I think Shane Steichen has admitted that, and I think the GM as well has admitted that, and they know that it was going to be a big risk drafting him. I think that's a big problem when you say that it's going to be a risk drafting this guy, and then that it hasn't gone well. I don't know who's going to win this game, to be honest. I am going to ultimately go with the Dolphins, though, because I think that the Dolphins have a lot more of a consistent roster. I mean, this is Daniel Jones' first ever start. I think the Colts have a better roster, but I don't think Daniel Jones is really going to shine in his first start. I just very much doubt that. So we'll wait and see what happens, but I am going to go with Miami on this one. I think they're going to upset the Colts on the road. But I don't think it's going to be a very good game. I think you're going to see it with these two teams that they're not the NFL's prime premier teams. But I am going with Miami. Next up, we have the Las Vegas Raiders at the New England Patriots. So these are two teams presumably on the rise. Mike Vrabel coming in, I think, is going to be a huge victory for the Patriots. And Pete Carroll coming in for the Las Vegas Raiders, I think, is also a big hit, a big positive thing. You have two premier coaches coaching these teams. The Raiders have gone with a lot of old Seahawks players, and the fact that they have Geno Smith now on their team. Ashton Genty looked like a really strong running back. So they have a lot going for them. It's just going to be a matter if they can put it all together, because the Raiders historically have not been able to do that. And then the same goes with the Patriots. They are still in the middle of their rebuild that they haven't been able to get past. Gerard Mayo was not the answer, even though he was handpicked to succeed Bill Belichick. I think Mike Vrabel is a lot more of a suitable successor to Bill Belichick than Gerard Mayo, because it clearly didn't work with Gerard Mayo. So I think it's going to be a lot better with Mike Vrabel. I'm going to go with the Patriots. I think they actually are going to win this one. I think the superior coaching of Mike Vrabel is going to be shown. I think Drake May is going to have a very good game. But I do think it's going to be a very close game, because while I don't think the Raiders are going to be great, I think they're going to be a lot like the Seattle Seahawks are this year, in that they're going to be mid. They're going to finish maybe 8 and 9. They're going to be in the playoff running for a while and maybe get eliminated in week 17 or 18 or something like that. So I think it's going to be a hard-fought game, but I'm going to go with the home team. I'm going to go with the Patriots. Next up, we have the Arizona Cardinals at the New Orleans Saints. What's interesting, I think, about the Cardinals is they're doing what I'm calling a slow rebuild. I think everyone is like, yeah, the Cardinals are rebuilding. Yeah, they're rebuilding. We got Jonathan Gannon. He's slowly building up the roster. He's coaching the team well. The team is fighting hard and losing close games. So this is supposed to be their next step in their rebuild. And if they end up just 7 and 10 or 8 and 9 or something like that, that's a failed rebuild, and they may have to move on from Jonathan Gannon. I think a lot of their success harbors on Kyler Murray. I think it's the same thing, where Kyler Murray will show promise and then he will trickle down. I think the Cardinals' success is directly dependent on Kyler Murray. And you look at what Lamar Jackson has turned into as a quarterback, and Kyler Murray, also as well, a very good mobile quarterback, has not made that step in terms of being a good passer. He's in that same tier as Tua Tagovailoa or Geno Smith, in that he's an average starting quarterback, but he doesn't do anything particularly great. You know what I mean? And I think that is the big problem. As for the Saints, Spencer Rattler is their starter, and I think they finally committed to the tank that they've been trying to avoid ever since Drew Brees retired. So this is going to be a lost season for the Saints, and I think they're in the running for one of the worst teams in the league. So for that reason, I am going to go with the Cardinals. I think the Cardinals are going to win. It should be a slaughter. This is one of those games where if the Cardinals barely squeak by the Saints, that's not going to look good for the Cardinals. They need to win this game, and they need to look strong in defeat. The Saints are a jobber, as they say, to get professional wrestling lingo here. They're a jobber to the Arizona Cardinals. So if the Cardinals don't beat them and beat them badly, then I think that's a bad sign for things to come with Arizona, that they're going to be kind of the same team that they have been, where they're going to be mid, they're going to be average, but they're going to not make the playoffs. They're going to be in the running for a little bit. And to be in mediocrity hell like that is one of the worst things for a team to be, because you can't get those high draft picks to get you over the top, to break that glass ceiling that gets you in the upper echelon of other playoff teams. You just stay in mediocrity hell. And that's what I'm afraid is going to happen to the Arizona Cardinals. But I do think they're going to win this game. So next up, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers at the New York Jets. So the big question on everybody's mind for this game is, how is 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers going to do against his former team in the New York Jets? No, I'm not talking about the Green Bay Packers. I'm talking about the Steelers. The Steelers were a lot more of a suitable spot for Aaron Rodgers to go to, because I think there's few coaches that can command respect to a guy like Aaron Rodgers, and I think Mike Tomlin is an example of a guy that could do that. So I think he is going to, like, the Steelers are going to get the most out of Aaron Rodgers than that they're going to get, and like they're going to get more out of Aaron Rodgers than any team is going to be able to get out of him at this point in his career. So it's going to be very telling to see how Aaron Rodgers does this year with the Steelers. If he still plays terribly and he plays like he did last year and in 2022, then we know that Aaron Rodgers is past his prime and he's an average starter in the league. You know what I mean? As for the Jets, Justin Fields is their starting quarterback, and I think he had a pretty poor rookie season, and he's like a low-tier starter for them. His explosive running ability is what's going to get him ahead, and I think that he's going to make a lot of splash plays that are going to keep the Jets in games, and I think he might actually win the Jets games every now and then, but I don't think it's going to be sustained success against actual playoff teams. So, I don't think the Jets are going to be very good. And I think the Steelers will be. The Steelers have always had a well-coached, well-run roster. And the one thing they've always missed is a good quarterback, and they have that with Aaron Rodgers. If the Steelers don't go 10 and 11 wins and make a convincing wild card spot with Aaron Rodgers, if it's clear that Aaron Rodgers is holding the team back and he's clearly like 2021 Ben Roethlisberger, where it was clear that Ben Roethlisberger was past it and he was barely holding on. He looked like a corpse out there. Then, like, if Aaron Rodgers doesn't get the job done, even when he's playing well, then the Steelers need to actually commit to a full rebuild, because this mediocrity hell that they've been swimming in for the last 5, 6, 7 years needs to stop. Because in theory, they got who they needed in Aaron Rodgers. And if that still doesn't make a difference, then the Steelers need to make some changes. But for this game, I'm going to go with the Steelers. So now it's the moment we've all been waiting for to talk about our favorite team, the Washington Commanders, as they host the New York Giants. This needs to be a layup game for the Washington Commanders. They are 6.5-point favorites. Jane Daniels, Offensive Rookie of the Year. Everything you know about the Commanders, I've already said. Everything you know about the Giants have already been said. Russell Wilson is going to make his first start with them at 37 years old. He showed in the preseason he can still throw a deep ball very well. His arm strength has not left him, which means that we need to get pressure on him. And it's going to be very interesting because you never know what can happen in a divisional round matchup. But the Commanders have to win this game, right? The Commanders have to win this game. And it's a similar thing to what I was saying about the Cardinals and the Saints. The Commanders have to win, and they have to win convincingly. If they barely squeak by the New York Giants, then we're going to have a problem. Unless the Giants surprise the rest of the league and are actually surprisingly good, which I don't think is going to happen. But Laramie Tunsil on the offensive line, the Giants, if they have any strength, it's their pass rush. So Jane Daniels is mobile, so he's got to try and escape pressure whenever he can. Laramie Tunsil needs to show us that he's worth the money that we paid him. Our offensive line needs to show up, and Jane Daniels needs to make plays. I have faith in him. I have more concern about our defense not showing up because, our defense hasn't really made that many strides. I mean, Von Miller is an okay signing. I don't really know how much faith you can put into a 36-year-old edge rusher. And other than that, Javon Kinlaw on the defensive line, I don't really know about that unless he's going to stop the run. I don't really know. So with that being said, I am going to go with the Washington Commanders, and I genuinely think they will win. But if it's a closer game than it has any right to be, then I'm going to be a little bit concerned to be like, are we going to, fall short this year? Who knows? I'm going with Washington. So next up, we have the Carolina Panthers at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Two expansion teams that are both desperately trying to claw their franchises back to relevance. The Jags can't get out of their own way, and the Panthers are the general consensus worst team in the last 5 years. That being said, the Panthers did kind of come back on a hot streak at the end of last year. Bryce Young started to play well. It kind of seemed like the team was kind of coming together a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see if that chemistry carries over into this year. I still don't think they're going to be very good. I think it's going to be like how the Cardinals were a couple years ago, where they were losing games, but they were staying in close games, and they were only losing by a couple, you know what I mean? So I think that the Panthers it's going to be close. I think the big thing here with this game is going to be Trevor Lawrence. This is a make or break year for him. He was the prince that was promised, as some of his nicknames have said. He looks like the most prototypical quarterback to ever exist, and it hasn't shown on the field. So he needs to come in here and he needs to beat a really bad Carolina Panthers defense. and show that he's worth all that money they paid him. I think he will. I think the Jaguars are going to win because they're playing such a bad team. I don't think the Jaguars are good by any means, but I do think they're going to beat a bad Carolina Panthers team. So I'm going with Jacksonville. So next up, we have the Tennessee Titans at the Denver Broncos. Denver took a big step last year under Sean Payton and Bo Nix. Their like team trajectory seems like it's going somewhere. They've built a strong identity, much like the Chargers. The Chargers and the Broncos share a lot of parallels because both teams had fantastic top 5 defenses, and they have a nice young quarterback to build the franchise around. Bo Nix needs to make that next step, which I think he will. I think that he showed substantial growth as the season progressed under Sean Payton in his rookie year, so I think he's just going to continue that. And I think that this is going to be another game where the Broncos are just going to establish that they're not the same bad team that they've been the last couple of years, and they're entering a new era of being competitive. The Titans, on the other hand, this is the first year of their rebuild, and I think the big thing with the Titans is just seeing how Cam Ward develops. I've heard a lot of great things about Cam Ward, and that he's a good leader. He goes in early. He works hard. He's the first in and one of the last to leave. All the great things you want to hear about a starting quarterback. So he may do for the Titans what Jane Daniels did for the Commanders. Very possibly so. I'm a Cam Ward supporter based on everything I've heard, but it takes a team. It doesn't just take a quarterback. So I do think the Broncos are going to win that game. But, we'll keep an eye on Cam Ward and see how he does. If he's getting rushed every year, every play, and is getting sacked and really getting eaten alive, then the team is going to fail him. But we'll wait and see what happens. So now we've entered the 4 o'clock slate of games. We're going to go with the San Francisco 49ers at the Seattle Seahawks. These are two divisional teams again. So anytime 2 divisional teams match up, it's going to be good. The San Francisco 49ers are going into this game with a lot of question marks. Are they going to be able to continue their Super Bowl chasing run that they have been on the last 5 years, or was last year an omen for the decline of their Super Bowl window? I honestly think that it's more likely the former. I think that they still do have a lot of core pieces left on their team to make a strong run. I don't think that they're going to make the conference championship, but I do think they're going to still be a very good team. The Seahawks, on the other hand, everything about them screams mid. Sam Darnold being their quarterback screams mid. They have a lot of young guys that still, need development. I think the Seahawks are a year or two away from serious contention. They can get off to a really good start of the season if they beat San Francisco, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think the 49ers are going to win this game. I think it's going to be a very close game, a very entertaining game. I think it's going to be a good game to watch in the 4 o'clock slate. But I think Christian McCaffrey is fully healthy. There's no injuries there. I think they're going to bounce back, the 49ers, and I think they're going to have a very, very, very good game against the Seahawks, and I think they're ultimately going to win. So next up, we have the Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers. Now, this game is one that is going to be very interesting now that the Green Bay Packers have Micah Parsons. A lot of things I've seen online, the Green Bay Packers are a Micah Parsons away from the Super Bowl. I think there's a lot of teams that are a Micah Parsons away from the Super Bowl. The Washington Commanders are a Micah Parsons away from winning a Super Bowl. There's a lot of question marks about the Lions because they lost in such a bad way to the Commanders. Are they going to be able to bounce back and become the same dominant team that they were last year? I personally think they will be able to because they had an even more heartbreaking loss the year prior when they were winning against the 49ers in the conference championship and then lost it in the second half. They were that close to the Super Bowl, and they bounced back and had the best season in conference in Lions history. A lot of players are coming back from injuries, like Aiden Hutchinson. They got to stay healthy. That's the big one. But, they're well coached. They're a strong team. And God, it's so tough because I was going to go with the Lions, but with Micah Parsons, that makes such a difference. But the Lions have a good offensive line, and Jared Goff is a good quarterback. I think Micah Parsons will make a difference, but I do think the Lions will ultimately win the game. And if the Lions do win, that's just going to be a testament to just how good they really are. So that'll be exciting to see as well. So I'm going with the Lions. Next up, we have another really, really exciting game, the Houston Texans at the Los Angeles Rams. I think both these teams are kind of in a similar situation. They have a playoff contending roster, and they're looking to make that extra bump into the next stratosphere, so to speak. The Rams have the clear edge at head coach. D'Amico Ryans is a good head coach, but I think Sean McVay is one of the top 2 or 3 coaches in the league. A lot of this is going to harbor on Matt Stafford's health. They've all the reports I've been reading have been saying that Matt Stafford has back problems, but he should be good to go for week 1. And that just tells me that any severe hits or sacks are going to cause, an injury. And if Matt Stafford goes down for the Rams, then the Rams are going to be in big trouble. Like, who are they going to play? Jimmy Garoppolo? You know what I mean? So like it's gonna really damper their chances of making a strong playoff run this year if Matt Stafford loses any kind of significant time. It might also be the end of his career as well. When you're 37, you need to stay healthy. Any type of career-ending injury at that point, it's hard to come back from. I can't remember the last time a quarterback that was 37 had a horrible injury and came back and then made a significant difference. Aaron Rodgers doesn't count because he was clear that he was not the same quarterback that he was, right? Assuming that Matthew Stafford stays healthy, I am going to go with the Rams. The Texans, I think, are still a very strong team, but it remains to be seen if the sophomore slump they had last year where they were a bit weak, their point differential was a big flat 0. They need to do better than that if they're going to make that next step and take advantage of CJ Stroud's rookie contract and the Super Bowl window that they're in. The Texans have a lot of talent. They need to put it together, but I do think they're ultimately going to lose to the Los Angeles Rams. All right, guys, so we are down to the Monday night game, and what a doozy is it going to be. We have the Baltimore Ravens at the Buffalo Bills. The Bills are favored by 1.5 points, and this is going to be an incredible game. This is going to be a great game. I remember the regular season when these two teams played each other last time. Derrick Henry blasted off with an 80-yard touchdown run. These two teams are juggernauts in the AFC. Like, this is an AFC championship caliber game. If one of these teams can beat the Chiefs in the divisional round, that's the big question mark, right? Both these teams are Super Bowl contenders if they can get past the Chiefs. Both these teams are Super Bowl champions if they can get past the Chiefs. These are the two teams in the AFC that have been held down by the Kansas City Chiefs. Ever since the Chiefs took over, the Bills have made 2 conference championships where they lost to the Chiefs, and the Ravens have been to 1 conference championship where they lost to the Chiefs. So this is going to be the battle for second place, and the Bills had it in the playoffs and the Ravens had it in the regular season. It's going to be an incredible game. I'm going to go with the Bills just because it's hard to beat them at home, and they are going to want to just assert their dominance, prove that they're still a good team. They're hard to beat at home. The Ravens are going to be a hard team to beat. It's going to be a great game. It's going to be a fantastic game, and I cannot wait to see it. I think the Bills are going to win, and I think it's going to be extremely close. So, last but not least, we have an AFC North showdown where the Minnesota Vikings go against the Chicago Bears. The Bears, in theory, have a lot more going for them as they are a step further in their rebuild after Caleb Williams got a year under his belt. But the Minnesota Vikings surprised a lot of pundits and fans when they went really far and won 13 games. Was it 13 games? Sorry, 13 or 14 games. But they lost in the wild card round in embarrassing fashion as Sam Darnold shit the bed for them, and they lost. Just insert video of the Vikings commentator going, "He's holding it too long. Throw it, man."
Right. 2 receivers left. Rams blitz. Darnold gets away from it. Steps up in the pocket. He's holding it too long. Just run. Throw it, man. Just
never get tired of that guy. He is hilarious. The Vikings have put him through so much over his 25-year career. But I digress. I am not sold on the Bears, though. I think that they don't have very good coaching, and I think ultimately that's what holds them back despite all the talent that they have. The fact that Keenan Allen went right back to the Chargers after, it makes me think that he just didn't like how they ran things there. So I am going to go with the Vikings. I think they are going to win. I think they're just a better team. Ben Johnson as the head coach, if he can turn it around, then you may be looking at a new young gun, a la like Sean McVay and a lot of these other young guys that have come in and showed that they are a big deal, but I am ultimately going to go with the Vikings because Kevin O'Connell is a top 5 coach as well. He's one of these young guys like Sean McVay who has hit the ground running and is just an incredible head coach. So Vikings on that one. So that concludes my predictions for the week. Let's see how they go. I will once again be keeping track of my record throughout the season to see how many games I get right and wrong. So we will keep track. I had like a 60% win percentage last year. So we'll see if I can beat that this time around, but it all starts with week 1. I don't know about you guys, but I cannot wait for more football. I've been Lampini, and I will see you guys next week. Take it easy.